Welcome to Raptor's Recon, and today's topic, Solo Bombs, Memorial Weekend Edition. So this weekend is special. It's Memorial Day weekend, so this section here is just a little tribute to my fellow brothers and sisters in arms who have paid the ultimate price. And I'd like to give a little bit of a quick rundown on why we celebrate Memorial Day weekend. It started out as Memorial Day was Decoration Day, and basically 3 years after the Civil War ended on May 5th, 1868, the head of an organization of Union veterans, the Grand Army of the Republic, established Decoration Day as a time for the nation to decorate the graves of basically the war dead with flowers. Eventually, Decoration Day changed from that name to Memorial Day, and it was first used in 1882. Memorial Day did not become the more common name until after World War II and was not declared the official name by federal law until 1967. So this is a time where we get to spend a few moments to think about those who paid the ultimate price for all of the freedoms that we enjoy here in the United States of America. So sit back and relax and enjoy this tribute to all the men and women who serve. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Now let's get back to the subject matter at hand, which is Solo. I'm going to read a news article from the Business Insider. It's titled Solo Bombs at the Box Office, taking in only 83 million over the weekend and 101 million by Memorial Day. This was written by Jason Gerasio, and here we go. It turns out Star Wars is not bulletproof. The beloved franchise released its latest Star Wars story movie over Memorial Day weekend by telling the origin story of space scoundrel Han Solo, and it greatly underperformed. That's an understatement. Solo, a Star Wars story, earned an estimated 83 million domestically over the weekend, and it's projected to take in 101 million by Memorial Day, according to Exhibitor Relations. That's 29 million off what the industry had for the movie's low-end projection. In the middle of last week, Solo was projected to earn between 130 million and 150 million on 4,381 screens. If that held, Solo would be set up to be the latest Star Wars movie having a record-breaking box office opening, taking the crown from current Memorial Day record holder 2007's Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End with 139.8 million. But by the end of the day Friday, Disney hinted that the weekend wouldn't go according to plan, as it drastically adjusted that projection to between 105 million and 115 million over the 4-day weekend. The 101 million performance by Memorial Day for Solo would be strong for any other movie at any other studio, especially over a holiday weekend where audiences would rather be outside than in a theater. But for a Star Wars movie, this just doesn't cut it. Solo went into the weekend on a strong note. The movie took in 14.1 million at Thursday night previews, a record for Memorial Day, beating At World's End, which took in 13.2 million. But there were signs that the movie would not be a huge moneymaker like other Star Wars movies that have been released since Disney bought the franchise. Yeah. Okay. So hold on for a second. Yeah, there were signs. Maybe the signs were all the empty seats, like I talked about in my previous video. I mean, literally empty seats. Entire theaters empty. So yes, there were plenty of signs, as well as fans, the fan backlash. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'll continue. Even if Solo hit the high end of its original industry projections, it wasn't likely to even have the opening weekend of 2016's Rogue One, which took in 155 million, the lowest opening weekend for a Star Wars movie since The Force Awakens. The opening 3-day performance by Solo is the lowest for a Star Wars movie since 2002's Star Wars Episode II: Attack of the Clones, which took in 80 million. But back in 2002, that was quite a feat. Counting inflation, that would be 126.1 million opening in 2018. So if you factor that in, it actually was a pretty good opening for Attack of the Clones. Continuing here. Solo may have had in-production drama. The movie's original directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, were fired over creative differences and replaced by Ron Howard, but you can't equate that with its poor box office. Rogue One had its own drama, as director Gareth Edwards had to take a back seat to the more experienced Helmer, Tony Gilroy, during the reshoots of the movie, and that went on to earn over $1 billion at the global box office. The weak performance by Solo is due more to three big obstacles: opening over Memorial Day weekend, Star Wars fatigue, and the movie's lackluster reviews. So here come the excuses now. Here comes the message that is getting misinterpreted by these sites. It frustrates me to no end. So excuse number one, opening over Memorial Day weekend. Hey, did that stop Pirates of the Caribbean? Nope. Sure enough didn't. Pirates of the Caribbean was able to make a lot of money over Memorial Day. That's why it holds the record. And that's Pirates of the Caribbean. Fun movie, but not much depth or anything else to it. It's fun. I don't have anything against Pirates of the Caribbean, but that's a garbage excuse. All right? Excuse number two, Star Wars fatigue. No thank you. Let me tell you, if The Return of the Jedi came out 6 months after Empire Strikes Back, I would have seen Return of the Jedi 5 times or more, just like I did when it came out and I saw it. And the same thing that I did with Empire Strikes Back. I would have seen it the same amount of times, even if there was only 6 months. Why? Because I would have been hyped and excited for it. This Star Wars fatigue is nonsense. Let's take a look. Star Wars fatigue? Where's the Marvel fatigue? Hello? Marvel, the entire Marvel universe? How many Marvel films come out? And when you combine that with the stuff that Fox puts out, which, obviously the X-Men franchise has ups and downs here and there. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that everything is a knockout punch, but the ones that Disney Marvel has been putting out have been all relatively successful in a very tight timetable. Okay? Look at just this year, for example. Look at just for recently. Black Panther. Look how well that did. I mean, gangbusters. And then Avengers Infinity Wars. Look how well that did. And it's continuing to do. It's doing great. Marvel fatigue. Deadpool 2. Yes, it's made by another. It's still Marvel. Look how well that one's doing. It's all good here. I am so sick of hearing Star Wars fatigue because it has nothing to do with Star Wars fatigue, and we'll talk about what it has to do with here in a little bit. But that's complete garbage. I've seen that on multiple sites here, and it's sickening. And then the movie's lackluster reviews. Yes, lackluster reviews, sure, but that's not the full picture. It is also the fan backlash, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let me finish this article, though. And by the way, when I was searching for articles, I had to find one that wasn't going to piss me off completely, because there's a couple articles that accuse us of being sexist, okay, and racist. Then they say, even there's a Forbes article where he says, This one guy basically says, if Kathleen Kennedy's name was Kevin, that we would have a different opinion. Get the frick out of here, man. Get out of here. You disgust me. And he talks about white males and all this other stuff. And meanwhile, the author is a white male. I mean, give me a break. So the article goes on to say, opening over the Memorial Day weekend, Star Wars was thrown headfirst into the cutthroat summer movie season, hits Avengers Infinity War and Deadpool 2 being the main combatants. It's a much more competitive time at multiplexes than December, which has been the home for Star Wars movies since The Force Awakens. Yeah, it did have stiff competition, but a good Star Wars movie would have basically held its own. I firmly believe that. Anyway, to continue. Also, over the last decade, moviegoers have been less interested to go to the theater over Memorial Day weekend, which for most areas of the country is the first time to enjoy the nice weather outside. Whatever. Any excuse, man. Last year, Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales opened over Memorial Day 4-day weekend and took in $78.4 million. That was just under its $80 million to $85 million projections, and the lowest opening for a Pirates movie since the first one, 2003's Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, which was $46.6 million. Other movies that opened over Memorial Day weekend and were DOA include Tomorrowland, $33 million opening weekend, Alice Through the Looking Glass, $26.8 million, and X-Men Apocalypse, basically $65.7 million. In this field, the solo opening doesn't look so bad, but the rules change when you talk about Star Wars. Yes, Star Wars fatigue is a thing. Okay, hold on. No, it's not. But I'll continue. With Solo opening 5 months after The Last Jedi, audiences just weren't motivated for another story from the saga that quickly, even one about one of its most legendary characters. You could make the argument that Marvel released Avengers Infinity War 2 months after Black Panther, and there certainly wasn't any MCU fatigue. But in that instance, it went from releasing an origin story followed by an established Avengers movie. It also didn't hurt that Infinity War practically starred every character from the MCU. Audiences weren't exhausted, they were pumped up for it. Also, things are a lot easier when both movies close to one another are great. Okay, so there you're getting, the author inadvertently, while it's making an excuse, is actually hitting the real reason, okay? So Avengers, so you had Black Panther, right? It was flipped. It's kind of like flipped, like if you had Solo come out first and then basically The Last Jedi is kind of like if it would have been a reversal. He's trying to make that argument, but the real point to take out of that, which he hits on the truth inadvertently, or maybe that was his way of shoving it in there and still maintaining what he's getting paid to write here, is that it's also a lot easier when both movies close to one another are great. Ding, 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 ding. The Last Jedi was not great. Now, it made a lot of money, but that movie divided the fandom. So, we'll talk about that, but I think if you take that piece out of his article, that is a very key point, okay? That if you brush over all the other stuff, you kind of read this and you're like, oh yeah, whatever. That is the huge key point, all right? Because things are a lot easier when both movies close to one another are great. If Solo was a better movie, this would all be moot. But with its 71% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, the lowest since Attack of the Clones, it did not possess the have-to-see-it first weekend hype that other Star Wars movies had. With all these factors combined, clearly for most, going to the beach or a barbecue was a better option this holiday weekend. So the premise of the article is basically that Memorial Day weekend, Star Wars fatigue, and movies lackluster reviews were the cause. I don't believe that. I think that's the wrong message. Sure, Memorial Day weekend had something to do with it a little bit, but that didn't stop Pirates of the Caribbean from doing a really good job. They talk about competition. Sure, you always have other movies that are going to be coming out, but a strong Star Wars film should be able to outshine them. Other movies get pushed or move their dates because of Star Wars. It's not usually the other way around. And then the Star Wars fatigue nonsense. Look, Star Wars fatigue is a myth, okay? It is a myth. We would love as much Star Wars as you can put out as long as it's high quality. If it was high quality, we wouldn't have a problem. It's the fact that what's getting put out, we don't like it. Okay, we don't like the agenda. We don't like the the destruction of our original trilogy characters. We don't like any of that stuff. We don't like the treatment of fans. All of that stuff are factors, and yes, that leads into the movie's lackluster reviews. I don't know why you guys are waiting so long to hire really experienced directors to do Star Wars. This is a chance to have some really heavy hitters come in and do Star Wars, and we're not getting that well, at least with Rian Johnson. That's kind of where did he come from? I mean, seriously. So yeah, you fire a group of people, you try and bring in Ron Howard to write the ship. There's a little bit of kerfuffle there, and you're getting, he's got to deal with his own thing, and you're going to get some bad reviews. But a lot of the bad reviews also were because it felt like you all weren't listening to the fans. So, this was a message here. I can't foot stomp that enough. This was a message from fans to Lucasfilms, to Disney. Got to get the ship pointed back in the right direction. It's not going in the right direction right now, and now we're paying. We are putting our money where our mouth is. Okay, first off, what has been done has been done. All right, the first Death Star has been blown up. Solo has been blown up this opening weekend. All right, this was the rebellion. Okay, this was the first victory for those who don't like what's happening up there. And I don't think it's you. I think certain things that are being done right now in the movies are intentional, but I don't think the mindset of putting them in is intentional in the way that most of the leadership wants. However, it is coming across, and it has come across as it's my way or the highway, and you don't care about what the fans want, and you don't care about what the fans like, and you don't care about what the fans desire, and your fans are your customers. It's plain and simple. So when we sit here and we try to blame fatigue, it's not fatigue. Look, if you came out with 2-3 solid Star Wars movies a year, they'd be making gangbusters. You would make you would make a ton of money. You'd be making money hand over fist, like ridiculous amounts, if you did it the right way. Okay? The only things that are going the right way on Star Wars right now was, okay, Rogue One, I enjoyed that for the movies. Clone Wars and Rebels. Okay? Clone Wars a little bit more than Rebels, but I like them. And I think what Dave Filoni and his team are doing, amazing. I can't give those guys kudos enough. They kept the heart of Star Wars, and they are continuing to expand it in a way that is both interesting and in a way that doesn't screw up your perceptions of the original trilogy characters and the things that for the last 40 years have basically built up to where we are now. Okay, they've done a really good job of that. They respect that. They make characters interesting. I mean, the whole arc with Darth Maul and him coming back and all that stuff. At first I was like, what? Even though I really like Darth Maul, the idea of that, but man, they made that amazing. Sabine, Ahsoka, that character arc and where Ahsoka has gone, and the fact that her interactions with Anakin and then eventually with Vader, and oh my gosh, come on. That is story gold. And even though I was a little disappointed in the ending between Maul and Obi-Wan, it still was emotionally impactful. It was strong. And it was like, wow, man, you felt for these characters, and you had seen it. They had built up to that point on point. I compliment them, okay? But The Force Awakens kind of left you. It was a little bit of a copy too much, I mean, beat for beat. And then you had The Last Jedi, which was an absolute atrocity. I mean, basically, the rebels trying to get away from, oh, the rebels, excuse me, the resistance trying to get away and blah blah blah, and it's just a big car chase, and the except for the only limiting factor is the lead car is running out of fuel, and the other guys have a tracer on it somehow. Give me a freaking break. That was the story. So I mean, sorry. I have respect for everybody at Lucasfilm, but I have a very deep, deep, deep disgust of what Rian Johnson did with that film and his attitude about wanting half of his base to either love it or hate it. Well, that's what you got. So my point about this whole bit is that it's not Star Wars fatigue. The fatigue is with the quality of the film and the movie and the characters being altered. Why mess with the original trilogy characters and change them into something they weren't? Or even mess with them at all? I mean, my gosh, what we wanted to see was the original three come back and go out with a blaze of glory, man. That's what we wanted to see. That's not what we were served up. Not by any stretch. And now we're going back into a prequel kind of thing where we're going to go and take a look at the origin of Solo. And we're going to delve into that and figure out how to screw that up and figure out how to screw up Lando. And screw up Lando they did. Coming out and saying that he's pansexual and all this other stuff, which has no business being in a Star Wars movie. I'm sorry, that has no business. Okay, sexuality has no business. This was started out as a kid's film with adult, a mix of adult and children, themes that was expertly done. It was a battle between good and evil. I've already talked about this umpteen times. I'm not going to delve into it. We all know, the real fans know what Star Wars is about, and it's not about that. To inject that, you got to be so tone deaf that you can't realize that most of the people in the world don't want to hear about that or see that in the film and bring their kids to see that. Nobody really does, for the most part. Okay? So that was completely idiotic. That was like adding another, you're already on a sinking ship and you just freaking detonated a block of TNT. That's dumb. Okay, sorry. I don't know who Disney's PR section is, or Lucasfilm's PR section, but they need to hire some new people, because how are they letting this stuff out? That's ridiculous. So it's not Star Wars fatigue. The fatigue is with quality of the movies, what we're being given, and also fatigue with what has been going on with the leadership of Lucasfilm, directors, Pablo Hidalgo, etc., and their attacks on fans. Okay, fans, you're always going to get complaints here and there on any side for any movie, but the vitriol and whatnot and the constant attacks on fans, ignoring fans, it's not cool, man. No customer coming into a restaurant, unless you're going to a restaurant where you want them to make fun of you and all that kind of stuff. There are ones like that who talk, and they're crass and whatnot, and they're like, what do you want, and whatever, whatever. There are restaurants that are like that. That's for a tailored experience. The 99% of the other restaurants or businesses want to provide an experience where the customer's always right. Where even if you have a disagreement, you sit down with the customer and you actively listen. Why is it that having a customer survey is so important in any organization? Restaurant is one of them, but stores, supermarkets, online shopping, car dealerships, anything. They want to know, why do they have customer surveys? Because they want to know what the customer is thinking. What does the customer want? They don't say, okay, now there's a difference between coming out with something that's completely innovative that the customer does not expect. But that is not what Rian Johnson brought out. He brought out something that he wanted to interject and shove in the face of the fandom, and then say, you're going to take it and you're going to like it. And any criticism, instead of saying, well, I can understand where you're coming from, no. It's like you're a racist, you're a sexist. It's because, you don't like Ray because she's a woman. You don't like this because, there's a, you don't like having a black man in a lead role and this, that, and the other and all this other stuff. No, that is not an appropriate defense. So the fatigue is on that. Of course there's going to be fatigue. And that leads to their third point, which was the bad ratings and the bad reviews. Because not only are they getting bad reviews, okay, obviously because there was some issues. I do say there were issues. We had the Lord and Miller getting fired. You had Ron Howard being brought in. I feel bad for, let me tell you something. I feel bad for Ron Howard. Okay, so whatever you want to say, I think he's a decent director put in a very bad position. In a position where he had to basically take a story that was not really his and he had to redo it. And he redid 80% or more of the shots, but trying to maintain what was already done, working with the actors that were already in place. He didn't really even have a say with that very much. So, as much as we can, crap on him, I would not leave. I mean, Ron Howard was the sacrificial lamb in this, and I feel really bad for him. Out of everybody over there, I feel bad for him. He was put in a very bad situation, and he tried to help Kathleen Kennedy out, and they should not drag him through the mud. He did his job to the best of his ability, given what he was given. That being said, you cannot expect to have all these joyous reviews when you don't listen to the fandom. You don't listen to what the fans want. First off, the fans didn't want a Solo movie, okay? Newsflash, the fans didn't want a Solo movie, all right? I remember reading or hearing somewhere that Kathleen Kennedy said that Solo was one of her favorite characters, so that's probably where it came from. But the fans did not want a Solo movie. This is not like you're coming out with the new freaking iPhone glass or something that it's so innovative and new and fresh that we're gonna want it, even though we don't realize that we didn't want it, or that we wanted it in the first place. This is not that. You're still rehashing an old. I mean, the upside is very slim because the old characters, the original trilogy characters, are held in such high regard. So really the upside is the margin for the upside is very small. You have a very large chance of screwing things up, just if you did everything right, because Han Solo is a freaking icon. All right, and I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but I will say the one thing that there's a lot of things that tick me off about the new movie, but the way that Han Solo got his last name, look, let me tell you something from experience. If you wanted to make that cool, you could have made it that was his call sign, okay? He's a pilot. Pilots in the military get call signs, all right? You would have, if you could have asked any just any freaking individual who is a pilot in a military outfit, and you are struggling for a way to come up with a good reason to give him something that should have been his name in the first place, why not make it a call sign that he earned? Because maybe he came back and he was the only one to come back from a number of missions, the only one to survive really hard missions. He always came back, and the missions were successful, and so he always came back solo, so they called him Solo. I don't know. That would have been way the hell better than what we got there. Just saying. So, my opinion, you served up something that we didn't want in the first place. There's not a lot of upside. You had a Last Jedi that basically divided the fandom 60-40 or worse, with people who did not like the movie in the majority and people who did like the movie in the minority. And then, even with people who liked the movie, they started to come over to the side of not wanting to watch Solo after seeing how fans who didn't like the movie were being treated. So, this is where it is. And let me say this. the message has been sent, and I kind of felt bad about it in a way. It's a good thing and a bad thing, but nobody, as a true fan on the inside and the core, you're like, damn, man, I really wish it could have been different for Solo. I mean, I know I wish that, but it had to be done because nobody is listening there, and I don't understand. Just listen. Just listen to the fans. My gosh, look at what Feige is doing, and what Robert Downey Jr. said about listening to the fans, being in synergy with the fans. If you did that, my lord, there would be no problems today. We would have no problems, okay? If you listen to the fans, you know what would have been the movie that came out this year? Probably Obi-Wan Kenobi, because ding, 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 99.999% of the people in the fandom probably want the Obi-Wan being played by Ewan McGregor, who is at the perfect age to play something like that. But no, you got to go do your own thing. It's what you think. And look at what happens. I'm telling you, people want the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic. I could come up with umpteen stories based on that. All right? It'd be more in tune with what is going on right now. So, what I urge, my message for Lucasfilm is it's time for us to extend the olive branch. And we are trying to do that. And the olive branch being, listen to us, work with us. We want a relationship with Lucasfilm the way that Marvel fans have with Feige and his team. We want to have good Star Wars. We don't want this anymore. Really, like I said, it's a good thing because I wanted to send a message, but at the same time, it gives me that sick feeling inside because I really don't, at my core, do not want to see Star Wars fail. Okay? So, the olive branch is being extended. I'm saying, at least for myself, as a fan who has been critical of certain things, complimentary of certain things, listen to us. Let's work together on this to make Star Wars what we know and love and can pass on from generation to generation. I mean, we have been there supporting this for the last 40 plus years. We want to hand the torch over to our children and our children's children. So, the extension of the olive branch is, here it is. You've seen what's happened. We've let our voices be heard. Do not get lulled or confused or distracted or get into that groupthink where you think it's Star Wars fatigue or some reason other than what it really is. This is a result of The Last Jedi. This is a result of attacking fans. This is a result of pushing agendas into things where they don't need to be, or just not listening to fans and giving us what we want. It's as simple as that. And that doesn't mean that you can't do something different and new, but gosh darn, just listen to us, work with us, and unify us again. Because right now, we are divided. Star Wars is divided. A house divided will not stand. And we don't want that. So please, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, listen to the message and right the direction of this franchise. All right. Thanks a lot for listening to me. I know it went on a little bit longer than I expected, but give me a like if you like. I'd love to hear your comments. Post those below. I'll make sure to try and respond as soon as possible. And share this and subscribe. Thanks a lot.